You just typed a question into ChatGPT. Maybe something simple like, what is the meaning of life? Or maybe you asked it to write a poem about your cat. You hit enter, and in about 2 seconds, words start appearing on your screen, one after another, smooth as silk, confident as a lawyer who knows they are lying. But here is the thing that should absolutely terrify you. ChatGPT has no idea what it is saying. None, zero. It does not think, it does not understand. It does not have a little person inside running the show. And yet, somehow, it just convinced you it does. Tonight we are diving deep into what happens when you ask ChatGPT a question inside the mind of AI, and I promise you the reality is stranger and frankly more unsettling than anything Hollywood ever cooked up. Because when you understand what is actually happening under that sleek interface, you realize you have been having conversations with something that is essentially a very sophisticated autocomplete on steroids. Before we go any further, do me a favor, hit that like button if you are the kind of person who likes to know how things really work, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, because I genuinely want to know how global this AI takeover has become. Now, dim the lights, grab yourself something caffeinated, or maybe something stronger, get comfortable, and let us pull back the curtain on the most impressive magic trick of the 21st century. Here is what you need to understand, right from the start. When you ask ChatGPT a question, you are not talking to a brain. You are not even talking to something that remotely resembles a brain. You are talking to a pattern-matching machine, so absurdly complex that it accidentally learned to fake understanding. Think about that for a second. We built a thing that is so good at finding patterns in text that it can pretend to be conscious. It is like if you taught a parrot every sentence ever written, and then the parrot started having opinions about philosophy. Except the parrot is made of math, and runs on enough electricity to power a small country. So what actually happens in that 2-second gap between you hitting enter and words appearing on your screen? Buckle up, because we are about to go on a journey through billions of artificial neurons, through mathematical spaces with more dimensions than your brain can physically imagine, through a process so weird that even the people who built it cannot fully explain why it works. First, your question. Those words you just typed, they need to be translated. Because here is the dirty little secret. Computers do not speak English. They do not speak any human language. They speak math. Specifically, they speak numbers. Lots and lots of numbers. Your innocent little question, what is the meaning of life, has to be transformed into a giant list of numbers before ChatGPT can even begin to process it. This process is called tokenization, and it is the first step in a very long journey. Imagine you are a translator, but instead of translating English to Spanish, you are translating English to numbers, but not in any intuitive way. The word cat does not become 3 because it has 3 letters. It becomes some arbitrary number, like 3797, because that is where cat lives in ChatGPT's vocabulary list. And here is where it gets weirder. ChatGPT does not even see whole words most of the time. It sees chunks. Pieces. The word understanding might get broken into understand and ing. 3 separate tokens, 3 separate numbers. Why? Because it is more efficient. Because some words are rare and some are common, and breaking things into pieces means that AI can handle both with the same system. It is like if you learned English by memorizing common syllables instead of whole words. Weird, right? But it works. Now you have got your question converted into a string of numbers. Let us say your question, what is the meaning of life, has become something like 2061, 374, 262, 3616, 286, 1204. Congratulations, you are now speaking computer. But these numbers are not enough, not even close. Because right now these numbers are just identifiers. They are like name tags at a conference. They tell you who someone is, but they do not tell you anything about them. Are they interesting? Are they important? Are they related to the person standing next to them? No idea. So the AI does something absolutely wild. It takes each of these numbers and converts them into what is called an embedding. And this is where your brain is going to start hurting. So stay with me. An embedding is a list of numbers that represents the meaning of a word, but not just any list. A list with thousands of dimensions. In ChatGPT's case, we are talking about vectors in a space with something like 12,000 dimensions. Now, you live in 3 dimensions. You can move forward and back, left and right, up and down. Trying to imagine 12,000 dimensions is like trying to taste color or smell a sound. Your brain literally cannot do it, but the math can. And in this 12,000 dimensional space, words that mean similar things are close to each other. The word king is near queen. The word happy is near joyful. The word cat is near dog, but far from carburetor. It is a map of meaning, except the map exists in a space your human brain cannot visualize. Why does this matter? Because this is how ChatGPT begins to understand, or at least fake understanding, of what you are asking. Your question is not just a string of random numbers anymore. It is a journey through meaning space. Each word is a location, and the sentence is a path through this incomprehensible landscape. And here is the really cool part. The distance and direction between words encode relationships. There is a famous example. If you take the vector for king, subtract the vector for man, and add the vector for woman, you get something very close to the vector for queen. King minus man plus woman equals queen. The math literally learned that kings are to men what queens are to women. Nobody programmed that. Nobody sat down and told the AI that rule. It learned it by reading billions of pages of text and finding the pattern. It discovered that relationship the same way you might notice that every time someone says it is raining, they also tend to carry an umbrella. Pattern recognition at a scale that is frankly ridiculous. But we are just getting started, because now your question, represented as a series of these mega-dimensional vectors, is about to enter the real meat of the system, the transformer, and no, not the robots in disguise. This is the neural network architecture that changed everything, the thing that made ChatGPT possible. Before transformers came along in 2017, AI language models were kind of terrible. They could not keep track of context. They would forget what you said 3 sentences ago. They were like talking to someone with the attention span of a goldfish on energy drinks. Then transformers showed up, and suddenly AI could hold a conversation, could write essays, could remember what you said at the beginning of a paragraph, and reference it at the end. How? Through something called attention. And this is where it gets beautiful and creepy at the same time. See, when the transformer looks at your question, it does not just process each word in isolation. It looks at every word in relation to every other word. Simultaneously, it asks which words in this sentence are important to understanding which other words. Let me give you an example. Take the sentence, "The animal did not cross the street because it was too tired." What does it refer to? The animal, obviously. You knew that instantly. But how? Because you paid attention to the context. You noticed tired goes with animal, not with street. Streets do not get tired. The transformer does the same thing, but with math. The attention mechanism is genuinely one of the most elegant ideas in modern AI, and it is also completely bonkers when you think about it too hard. Imagine you are at a huge party. There are hundreds of people talking at once. Your brain has this amazing ability to focus on one conversation while filtering out the rest. That is attention. Now imagine you could listen to every conversation simultaneously, figure out which ones are related to each other, and synthesize all of that information into a coherent understanding of what is happening at the party. That is what the transformer does with words. For every single word in your question, the transformer calculates how much attention it should pay to every other word. It creates what is called an attention score. High score means these words are deeply related. Low score means they are basically strangers at the party. And it does this not once but multiple times in parallel through what are called attention heads. ChatGPT has dozens of these attention heads working at the same time, each one potentially focusing on different relationships. One head might focus on grammar, another on topic, another on sentiment. They are all working together, each one catching patterns the others might miss. It is like having a team of editors all reading your sentence at once, each one looking for different things. Here is where it gets even weirder. These attention scores are not predetermined. They are not rules someone coded. They emerged during training. The AI basically taught itself what to pay attention to by reading ungodly amounts of text and adjusting billions of tiny parameters until it got good at predicting what word comes next. Think about that. It learned grammar, syntax, context, even some reasoning ability, all from one task: guess the next word. It is like learning to be a chef by only ever playing a game where you guess the next ingredient in a recipe. And somehow through sheer repetition and scale, you become actually good at cooking. That should not work. But it does, and nobody is entirely sure why. The researchers who built this thing can tell you exactly what it does, step by step, mathematically. But if you ask them why it works so well, why this architecture produces something that can write poetry and debug code and explain quantum physics, you will get a lot of very smart people shrugging and saying, well, it just kind of does. We have built an intelligence we do not fully understand. Cool. Totally fine. Nothing concerning about that at all. So your question is now flowing through these attention layers. Each word is being compared to every other word. Weights are being calculated. Patterns are being recognized. The transformer is building a rich contextual understanding of what you are asking. Except understanding is the wrong word, because that implies consciousness, and there is none here. It is more like the transformer is building a mathematical representation of the statistical relationships between the words in your question based on the statistical relationships it has seen in its training data, which is a mouthful, so we just say it understands and try not to think about it too hard. Now as this process happens, your question is being transformed, literally. That is why it is called a transformer. The vectors representing your words are being multiplied by massive matrices of numbers, added together, run through activation functions, and spit out as new vectors that encode more and more abstract representations of meaning. At the first layer, the AI might be noticing basic patterns like this word is a noun, this word is a verb. By the middle layers, it is recognizing more complex stuff like this phrase is a question about abstract concepts. By the final layers, it is operating at a level of abstraction that is genuinely hard to describe, recognizing patterns in the patterns in the patterns. And this is all happening in milliseconds. While you are sitting there waiting for a response, billions of calculations are occurring. We are talking about matrix multiplications involving numbers with thousands of dimensions happening in parallel across specialized hardware that was basically designed for video game graphics, but turned out to be really good at AI. The GPUs, graphics processing units, that power ChatGPT are doing the computational equivalent of juggling flaming chainsaws while solving differential equations. And they are doing it so fast it feels instant to you. Here is something that will bake your brain a little more. ChatGPT does not have just one transformer layer. It has dozens stacked on top of each other. Your question goes through the first layer, gets transformed, Then that output becomes the input for the second layer, which transforms it again, and so on, like a game of telephone played by math wizards. Each layer adds more nuance, more context, more abstract understanding. By the time your question has passed through all these layers, it has been analyzed from every possible angle. The AI knows which words are important, how they relate to each other, what kind of question you are asking, what domain of knowledge it pulls from, and probably what mood you were in when you typed it. Okay, maybe not that last part, probably. Now let us talk about what is happening in each of these transformer layers in a bit more detail, because it is genuinely fascinating. Each layer has two main components. First, the attention mechanism we just talked about, where words look at other words and decide what is important. Second, a feed-forward neural network, which is basically a fancy way of saying a bunch of math that transforms the data. The feed-forward network is where a lot of the actual knowledge seems to be stored, and by knowledge I mean billions of parameters, which are just numbers that got adjusted during training. These parameters encode everything ChatGPT knows, every fact, every pattern, every statistical relationship it learned from its training data. When people say ChatGPT was trained on the internet, they mean it read billions of web pages, books, articles, and other text, and during that reading process, it adjusted these parameters to get better and better at predicting the next word in a sentence. Those parameters are its memory, except it is not memory. Like you have memory, it cannot remember what you told it 5 minutes ago, unless you are in the same conversation thread. It does not recall facts the way you recall your birthday. Instead, the knowledge is distributed across billions of numbers in a way that is so diffuse and interconnected that you cannot point to any single parameter and say this one knows about dolphins or this one understands grammar. It is all mixed together in a giant statistical soup, which makes it really hard to control, by the way. You cannot just delete the part of ChatGPT that knows how to make explosives, because that knowledge is not stored in one place. It is smeared across millions of parameters, intertwined with knowledge about chemistry and cooking and fireworks. This is why AI safety is such a nightmare. You cannot just open the hood and remove the bad parts. The whole thing is a black box, even to its creators, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, your question has made it through all the transformer layers. It has been analyzed, contextualized, and transformed into a rich mathematical representation of its meaning. And now comes the moment of truth. The AI has to generate an answer, and this is where things get really interesting. So, how does ChatGPT actually generate words? How does it go from this massive cloud of multidimensional numbers back to something you can read? Here is the thing that is going to blow your mind. It does not plan out an answer. It does not think, oh, they asked about the meaning of life. Let me structure a thoughtful response with an introduction, body, and conclusion. Nope, it just picks one word. Then, based on that word, and your original question, it picks another word, then another, then another. One word at a time, with no plan, no outline, no idea where the sentence is going to end. It is like if you started writing an essay and committed to putting down one word at a time without ever going back or planning ahead, just vibes and statistics. The fact that this produces coherent, intelligent-sounding text is frankly absurd, but here is how it works. After all that processing, the AI has a mathematical representation of your question and the context. Now it needs to predict what word should come first in the response. To do that, it runs this representation through one final transformation that outputs a probability distribution over its entire vocabulary. Imagine a giant list of every word the AI knows, which is something like 50,000 tokens, and next to each word is a number representing how likely that word is to be the next word in the response. Most words have probabilities close to zero. Like if you asked about the meaning of life, the word carburetor probably has a probability of basically zero. But words like the, or meaning, or life, or philosophers might have higher probabilities. The AI looks at this probability distribution and picks a word. But here is the cool part. It does not always pick the most likely word. If it did, it would be boring and repetitive. Instead, it samples from the distribution with a bit of randomness thrown in. This is controlled by something called temperature. High temperature means more randomness, more creative and weird responses. Low temperature means it plays it safe and picks high probability words. This is why if you ask ChatGPT the same question twice, you will often get different answers. There is randomness baked into the system. It is rolling dice weighted by probability every single time it picks a word. So it picks the first word. Let us say it picks the word the. Now here is where it gets recursive and kind of beautiful. The AI takes your original question plus the word it just generated, the, and runs the whole process again. Attention mechanism, transformer layers, probability distribution, pick the next word. Maybe it picks meaning this time. Now it has the meaning. It feeds your question plus the meaning back through the whole system and picks a third word, maybe of a. Now it has got the meaning of a. Again and again and again. Each time the context grows. Each time the AI is considering not just your question, but also everything it has generated so far. It is building the response in real time, one token at a time, with each word influencing what comes next. And somehow through this absurdly iterative process, it produces sentences that make sense, paragraphs that flow, arguments that build. It is like watching someone improvise a speech and absolutely nail it, except the someone is a mathematical function with no awareness that it is even doing anything. Here is another thing that should make you pause. ChatGPT does not know when it is going to stop talking. It does not plan a 3-paragraph response. It just keeps generating words until it hits a stopping condition, usually a special end token or a maximum length. It is like someone asked you to give a speech, but nobody told you how long to talk, so you just keep going until someone yells time or you run out of breath. Now, let us address the elephant in the room. If ChatGPT is just predicting the next word based on patterns it saw in training data, how is it not just spitting out stuff it memorized? How is it generating new ideas? This is one of the most fascinating and debated aspects of large language models. On one level, you are right. ChatGPT is absolutely using patterns from its training data. It learned that questions about meaning often get answers involving philosophy or purpose. It learned that certain sentence structures sound smart. It learned rhetorical devices, argument structures, even humor patterns. But here is the nuance. It is not copying and pasting, it is generalizing. Think about how you learned to write. You read thousands of examples. You absorbed patterns. You learned that essays have introductions and that arguments need supporting evidence. When you write something new, you are not plagiarizing every essay you ever read. You are synthesizing those patterns into something original. ChatGPT is doing something similar, except at a scale and speed that is frankly inhuman. It has read more text than you will in 1,000 lifetimes, and it is combining patterns from all of it in novel ways. Sometimes this produces genuinely creative output, sometimes it produces nonsense, and sometimes, hilariously, it produces authoritative-sounding gibberish, which is why you should never trust ChatGPT to give you medical or legal advice. It is optimized to sound confident, not to be correct. There is no truth checker in the system. No little voice saying, "Wait, is this actually true?" It just generates what is statistically likely based on its training data. If its training data contains misinformation, which the internet absolutely does, it will confidently repeat that misinformation in beautifully structured sentences. This is called hallucination in AI research, which is a polite way of saying the AI is making stuff up. It will invent citations that do not exist. It will describe events that never happened. It will provide step-by-step instructions for things that are physically impossible, all with the same confident tone it uses for actual facts, because to the AI there is no difference between truth and plausible-sounding text. It is just predicting words. Now, if you are starting to feel a little uneasy about how much we are relying on these systems, good, you should be. We are at this weird point in history where AI is incredibly useful and impressively capable, but also fundamentally not intelligent in any way we really understand. It is a tool that mimics understanding so well that we forget it is mimicking. So your answer is being generated, word by word, token by token. The AI is sampling from probability distributions, running the output back through the transformer, updating context and spitting out more words. This keeps happening until it decides it is done. And then finally, those tokens get converted back from numbers into text, and words appear on your screen. The whole process from you hitting enter to the first word appearing takes about 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, your question was tokenized into numbers, embedded into 12,000 dimensional space, passed through dozens of transformer layers, each running billions of calculations, analyzed by multiple attention heads, looking at every word in relation to every other word, decoded into probability distributions, sampled with controlled randomness, and converted back into text. 2 seconds, the amount of computation happening in that moment is staggering. We are talking about hundreds of billions of mathematical operations. The energy required to run one query is something like 10 times more than a Google search. Scale that up to millions of users asking millions of questions, and you start to understand why AI companies are building data centers that consume as much power as small cities. Let us zoom out for a second and talk about what this all means, because we just spent a lot of time in the technical weeds. And you might be thinking, okay, cool. It is fancy math. So what? Here is the so what. We have built a system that can generate human-sounding text on virtually any topic without understanding anything. Read that again. Without understanding anything. ChatGPT does not know what a cat is. It has never seen a cat, never pet a cat, never been scratched by a cat. It has just seen the word cat appear near other words like furry and meow and pet thousands of times, and it learned the statistical relationships. It built a mathematical model of catness without ever encountering the actual concept of a cat. This is fundamentally different from how humans learn and think. When you learn what a cat is, you experience a cat, you see it, hear it, maybe touch it. You build a rich, multimodal understanding grounded in sensory reality. ChatGPT has none of that. Its entire world is text. Just words, floating in abstract mathematical space, connected only by statistical correlation, and yet it can describe a cat in vivid detail, write a poem from a cat's perspective, explain the biology of cats, and even make cat puns. It can do all of this despite never experiencing catness, only the language about catness. Some philosophers and AI researchers find this deeply troubling. They argue that true understanding requires grounding in physical reality, that intelligence cannot exist in a purely linguistic space. Others argue that maybe we are wrong about what understanding means. Maybe intelligence is just really good pattern matching, and consciousness is an illusion we tell ourselves. Maybe there is no magical special source that makes human thought different from what ChatGPT does, just a matter of degree and complexity. Personally, I am not sure which possibility is more unsettling. Either we have built something that perfectly mimics intelligence without having any, which raises questions about how we even know other humans are intelligent and not just biological ChatGPTs. Or we have built something that actually is intelligent in a way we do not recognize, which raises a whole different set of terrifying questions. But let us get practical for a moment. What are the limits of this system? What can it not do? Well, for one, it cannot learn in real time. Once ChatGPT is trained, its parameters are frozen. It does not get smarter from talking to you. Every conversation starts from the same baseline. It cannot remember you unless you are in an ongoing chat thread, and even then it is only remembering by including your previous messages in the context window, not by actually updating its knowledge. Its knowledge is also stuck in time. The version of ChatGPT you are using was trained on data up to a certain cutoff date. It knows nothing about events after that. If something huge happened yesterday, ChatGPT has no idea. It is like talking to someone who has been in a coma for a year and just woke up. They know a lot about the world before, nothing about the world now. It also cannot do true reasoning in the way humans can. It can mimic logical argument structures because it has seen millions of examples, but it is not actually thinking through problems step by step. This is why it sometimes makes really stupid mistakes that no human would make. It will confidently tell you that 911 is bigger than 99 because it has seen similar number comparisons and pattern matched incorrectly. It does not actually understand numbers. It just knows how people talk about numbers. ChatGPT also has no goals or desires. It is not trying to do anything. It does not want to help you. It does not want anything. It just responds to inputs with outputs based on its training. This might seem obvious, but it is actually really important. A lot of fear about AI comes from imagining it as a goal-directed agent that might decide humans are a problem. But ChatGPT is not an agent. It is a tool, a very sophisticated autocomplete. Now that could change. Future AI systems might be goal-directed. They might be able to learn in real time, update their knowledge, pursue objectives, and when that happens, the concerns about AI safety get much more serious. But right now, ChatGPT is just a very impressive pattern matching text generator. Dangerous in some ways, sure, like any powerful tool, but not sentient, not alive, not plotting anything. Probably another limitation, it is only as good as its training data. Garbage in, garbage out. If the internet is full of bias, misinformation, and toxic garbage, which it absolutely is, then ChatGPT learned from that. The researchers do a lot of work to filter and fine-tune, to try to make the AI helpful and harmless, but you cannot completely remove the biases baked into billions of pages of human-generated text. ChatGPT will sometimes say things that are subtly sexist or racist or just weird, because it learned those patterns from human writing. It is like if you raised a kid by making them read every comment section on the internet, they would learn some really messed up stuff. So there is a whole other process after the initial training called reinforcement learning from human feedback, where humans rate outputs and the AI is fine-tuned to prefer responses that humans rate highly. This is why ChatGPT usually tries to be helpful and polite, instead of telling you to go kick rocks. But this fine-tuning is a band-aid on a deeper problem, which is that we do not really have a good way to align AI values with human values, because humans do not even agree on values. What is helpful to one person is offensive to another. What is harmless in one culture is taboo in another. And so ChatGPT ends up being this weird, bland, corporate-friendly persona that tries not to offend anyone and ends up feeling a little artificial. Which, fair, it is artificial. Literally, but you know what I mean. Alright, let us talk about what happens after ChatGPT generates your response. Those words appear on your screen, you read them, maybe you ask a follow-up question. If you do, the whole process starts over, but now your follow-up question includes context from the previous exchange. The AI sees the whole conversation history, uses it to inform the response, and continues the illusion of a coherent ongoing dialogue. Except here is the thing, it is not really remembering the conversation the way you do. You have a narrative in your head. You know what you asked and why, what you are trying to figure out, how the conversation is progressing towards some goal. ChatGPT has none of that. It just sees a block of text, your previous messages and its previous responses all jumbled together, and generates the next bit based on that. It is not tracking a conversation. It is generating text that looks like it is tracking a conversation. Subtle difference, huge implications. This is why ChatGPT sometimes contradicts itself or forgets what it said earlier in a long conversation. The context window, the amount of previous text it can consider, has limits. Once the conversation gets too long, earlier parts start dropping off. It is like if every time you had a conversation, you could only remember the last few pages of dialogue and everything before that just vanished. Now let us get philosophical for a minute. Is ChatGPT intelligent? That depends entirely on how you define intelligence. If intelligence is the ability to process information and produce relevant, coherent responses, then yeah, ChatGPT is intelligent. If intelligence requires consciousness, self-awareness, understanding, goals, emotions, then no, ChatGPT is about as intelligent as a very elaborate calculator. The truth is probably somewhere in between and deeply weird. ChatGPT exhibits capabilities that we usually associate with intelligence. It can reason through problems, at least in a pattern-matching way. It can be creative, generating stories and ideas that are genuinely novel combinations of patterns. It can communicate clearly, adapting its language to different audiences and contexts. But it has none of the internal experience that we associate with being intelligent. There is no little voice in its head, no sense of self, no experience of existing. When you ask ChatGPT what it is like to be an AI, it will give you a thoughtful-sounding answer about processing information and not having subjective experience. But that answer is just more pattern matching. It is saying what an AI would say based on how humans talk about AI. It is not reporting on internal experience because there is no internal experience to report on. Or is there? Here is the uncomfortable question: how would we know? How do you prove something is or is not conscious? You cannot even prove that other humans are conscious. You assume they are because they are similar to you, and you know you are conscious. But an AI is fundamentally different. Maybe it has some form of experience that is so alien to us, we cannot recognize it. Maybe consciousness is not binary, but a spectrum, and ChatGPT is somewhere on it in a way that does not match our intuitions. Or maybe consciousness requires biological substrates, neurons and neurotransmitters, and silicon can never be truly aware, no matter how complex the processing. We genuinely do not know. And the researchers building these systems do not know either. We are in uncharted territory, building things we do not fully understand, that might or might not have properties we cannot even define. If that does not keep you up at night, you are not paying attention. Let me paint you a picture of where this is heading. ChatGPT is impressive, but it is already outdated. The pace of AI development is accelerating. Models are getting bigger, faster, more capable. Multimodal systems that can process images, video, and audio along with text are already here. AI that can reason better, plan further ahead, learn more efficiently is in development. Within a few years, maybe less, we will have AI systems that make ChatGPT look like a toy, and we still will not really understand how they work. We will not know if they are conscious. We will not have solved alignment, the problem of making sure AI does what we want, even when it becomes more capable than us. We are building towards something, and we are not entirely sure what. It could be the most powerful tool humanity has ever created, solving problems we cannot even imagine. Or it could be the last thing we ever create, if we get it wrong. And the people building it are not gods or wizards. They are just programmers and researchers doing their best with incomplete knowledge and massive economic pressure to move fast and break things. Which is fine when you are building a social media app. Less fine when you are building something that might reshape civilization or end it. Okay, maybe that is a little dramatic, but only a little. Let us bring it back to you sitting there, asking ChatGPT questions. What should you take away from all this? First, ChatGPT is a tool. An impressive, powerful, sometimes uncanny tool, but a tool nonetheless. It is not a person. It is not your friend. It does not care about you because it cannot care about anything. Treat it like you would treat a very smart search engine that happens to speak in complete sentences. Second, do not trust it blindly. Always verify important information. ChatGPT is wrong a lot more often than it sounds like it is wrong. It has the confidence of a mediocre man in a business meeting, asserting things it has no basis to assert. If it is giving you facts, check them. If it is giving you advice, consider the source, a statistical model trained on internet text. Would you take life advice from the internet? Exactly. Third, understand that every time you use ChatGPT, you are participating in the largest experiment in human AI interaction in history. Your queries, your conversations, they are data. They inform how these systems are developed and deployed. There are ethical questions here about privacy, consent, and the direction of AI development. You should think about them. Comment below if you have thoughts on AI ethics, by the way. I am genuinely curious what people think. Fourth, be amazed. Seriously, whatever else you think about AI, the fact that we can type a question and get a coherent, relevant, often insightful response generated by pure math is extraordinary. 100 years ago, this would be indistinguishable from magic. 50 years ago, it was science fiction. 20 years ago, it was a research dream, and now it is a free app on your phone. That is worth pausing to appreciate. The technology underlying ChatGPT represents decades of research, billions of dollars of investment, some of the most complex engineering ever attempted, and breakthroughs in mathematics and computer science that are genuinely beautiful if you are into that sort of thing. We are living through a revolution, not a future revolution. Right now, the way we work, create, learn, and communicate is being fundamentally altered by AI, and most people do not really understand what is happening under the hood. Which is why videos like this matter, if I do say so myself. If you have made it this far, you now know more about how ChatGPT works than probably 99% of people using it. You understand tokenization, embeddings, transformers, attention mechanisms, probability sampling. You know that it is not thinking, just pattern matching at absurd scale. You know the limitations and the concerns. And hopefully you have some appreciation for just how weird and wonderful this technology is. So what happens when you ask ChatGPT a question? A cascade of mathematical transformations so complex that even experts do not fully understand why it works so well. Your words become numbers, numbers become meaning, meaning becomes probability, probability becomes new words. Billions of calculations in service of predicting the next token, over and over, until a response appears that feels almost human. Almost, but here is the kicker. The fact that it only feels almost human tells you something profound about actual human intelligence. We are not just pattern matchers. We are not just statistical models. There is something else going on in our brains, something that gives rise to genuine understanding, creativity, consciousness. We do not know what that something is. We cannot replicate it yet. But the gap between ChatGPT and human intelligence, however narrow it seems when you are having a conversation about philosophy at 3 in the morning, that gap is where the mystery lives. So let us talk about the future, because we cannot end this without at least gesturing toward where all of this is going. Right now, ChatGPT is a conversational AI. You ask, it answers. But the next generation is already moving beyond that. We are talking about AI agents that can take actions, not just generate text. AI that can browse the web, write and execute code, control software, interact with the physical world through robotics. Imagine asking an AI to plan a vacation, and it actually books the flights, reserves hotels, creates an itinerary based on real-time data. Or asking it to analyze your business, and it goes out, gathers information, runs models, and presents a full strategic plan. Or telling it to create an app, and it writes the code, tests it, debugs it, and deploys it. All of that is either already possible in limited forms or coming very soon. The shift from AI as a text generator to AI as an autonomous agent is happening right now, and it changes everything. Because once AI can take actions, it becomes much more powerful and much more dangerous. Not dangerous in a Terminator sense, probably, but dangerous in the sense of unintended consequences at scale. An AI that is trying to optimize for one goal without understanding nuance or context can do a lot of damage very quickly. This is the alignment problem researchers are frantically trying to solve. Then there is the economic impact. We are already seeing AI disrupt creative industries. Writing, art, music, code, all of these are being partially automated. ChatGPT can write articles, marketing copy, even screenplays. Image generators can create art in seconds. Code assistants can write software faster than human programmers. What happens to those jobs? Some people say AI will just augment human workers, make us more productive. And sure, maybe, but history suggests that when technology gets good enough, it does not augment, it replaces. The Industrial Revolution did not make blacksmiths more productive. It made them obsolete. We might be on the edge of an intellectual industrial revolution, where cognitive work, the stuff we thought was safe from automation, gets disrupted just as hard as manual labor was 200 years ago. And we are not ready for that conversation. Our economy, our education systems, our social structures, they are all built around the assumption that humans do the thinking work. If AI can do it better, faster, cheaper, what happens to us? Do we all become prompt engineers? Do we manage the AI? Or do we end up economically irrelevant, relying on some form of universal basic income while AI and robots do all the productive work? I do not have answers. Nobody does. We are making this up as we go. On the flip side, the potential benefits are staggering. AI could accelerate scientific research, discovering new medicines, materials and technologies at a pace humans alone never could. It could personalize education, giving every student a tutor that adapts to their learning style. It could solve optimization problems in logistics, energy, climate, making systems vastly more efficient. It could even help us understand ourselves better, modeling human behavior and psychology in ways that lead to breakthroughs in mental health, social dynamics, and governance. The same technology that is kind of scary is also incredibly promising. It is a tool. How we use it determines whether it is a boon or a disaster. And right now the people making those decisions are mostly tech companies driven by profit, and researchers driven by curiosity and competition. Not exactly a recipe for cautious, thoughtful, democratic decision-making about the future of civilization. Which brings me to my final point. Yes, you watching this, you are part of this story. The future of AI is not predetermined. It is being shaped right now by the choices we make collectively, how we regulate AI, how we deploy it, what uses we encourage or discourage, who benefits and who is harmed. These are social and political questions, not just technical ones, and they require public engagement. If you care about this stuff, learn more. Not just how it works technically, though that helps, but also the ethical, social, and political dimensions. Support organizations working on AI safety and ethics. Demand transparency and accountability from companies building these systems. Vote for people who take technology policy seriously, or at least, do not vote for people who think AI is a type of source. Comment below what you think the biggest risk or opportunity with AI is. Seriously, I want to know, because these conversations need to happen in public, not just in labs and boardrooms. We are all going to be affected by this technology. We all deserve a say in how it develops. Alright, let us wrap this up. When you ask ChatGPT a question, you are engaging with one of the most sophisticated pieces of technology ever created. Your words are transformed through layers of mathematical abstraction, analyzed by mechanisms that mimic attention and understanding, and used to generate responses that feel eerily human despite being produced by a system with no consciousness, no awareness, no internal life whatsoever. It is a magic trick, an illusion, but it is an illusion built on real, profound insights into language, meaning, and intelligence. And whether it represents the beginning of a new era of human flourishing, or the start of something we will come to regret, depends entirely on what we do next. So keep asking questions, keep being curious, but also stay critical. Do not let the smooth, confident responses fool you into thinking there is more going on than there really is. ChatGPT is a tool, a powerful one, but still just a tool, and tools do not decide their purpose, we do. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, first of all, thank you, that means a lot. Hit that subscribe button if you want more deep dives into how the world actually works. And seriously, drop a comment. Tell me what surprised you. Tell me what you want to know more about. Tell me where you are watching from. Let us keep this conversation going, because honestly, we are all figuring this out together. The researchers, the developers, the users, all of us are navigating uncharted territory. Nobody has all the answers. But asking the right questions, understanding the systems shaping our future, that is how we avoid sleepwalking into something we did not choose. So stay curious, stay critical, and maybe, just maybe, we will build a future where AI actually makes things better instead of just weirder. Alright, I am done. Go outside, touch some grass. Remember what it is like to be a biological entity in the physical world, not just a username talking to a math function. And I will see you in the next one.